welcome. Welcome to the Comic Corner. My name is Damon. He is Fat Thor. Buddy, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, my friend. I'm doing good. It's about like 105 here today. I got my coffee ready. We got some good books to talk about. It's gonna be a great day, my friend.
Please tell me it's iced coffee.
It has to be, dude. Yeah,
Good, okay.
I'm dying out here as it is. Nothing over like 50 degrees can come into this house.
Absolutely. Ugh. It's hot. It's
Yeah,
hot.
it
It's
sucks.
gross. Man, it's what a time. What a time to be alive for all of us. Here's the rundown for the day. Let's get into the comic talk. Here's what we will be talking about. From the Ashes to Me, my X-Men, the brand new run, the brand new era of X-Men is here. We will chat about it. We have some differing opinions on this first issue, so that'll be an interesting conversation. Always go for the underdog. We have a good handful of indies from Dark Horse, from Boom today. We will be discussing Barfly, which I've really enjoyed. And also, Danny. Oh, Danny, what did you do, buddy? What did you do? Crocodile Black #3 came out from Boom Studios from Philip Kennedy Johnson, and man, that got real dark real quick, and the spiral is just going down and down and down. But before we get to all of that, before we get to any of our reviews, because what we do here is we do news, reviews, and interviews. If you want to check out interviews, just check out our playlist. We have a ton of interviews already. But first, the news. And man, did we have a news dump yesterday. Within like hours of each other, almost like minutes of each other. We had some pretty big news in big ways, but also small ways. So essentially, this is what happened. Penguin Random House, which is, a big a big book distributor. They do novels and everything. They bought Boom Studios. They just acquired Boom Studios, kind of out of nowhere, which was very, very, very surprising. We'll chat about more what that kind of means in a little bit. But at the same time, almost within minutes of each other, we then learned that Distillery has signed with Diamond as their exclusive distributor. So what does this all mean from like a comic book fan perspective? From the reader, not much is going to change, honestly. I do not expect anything, at least from the Penguin Random House side from Boom, for like content to change at all. I'm not expecting that. What I do think is very cool is that Penguin Random House is getting deeper into the comic book game. We've seen that they kind of signed Marvel as their distributor, and from the things that I've been told from a local comic shop perspective, that Penguin Random House, because they are a legit company, do their distributions and everything very well. Like, there's very few issues with that. So now a little bit of a rocky start, like everything always kind of starts off with. But now things are doing pretty well. Very good company to deal with. So this is pretty good from Boom Studios' side. And at least from the reading side, yeah, not much is going to change. And then from Distillery, from Diamond. So how it worked prior was Boom was actually with Diamond as a distributor. Diamond was like the distributor for a long time. They were the company. Many publishers started leaving Diamond to go to Penguin Random House, maybe self-publish, other distributors, which makes things a little more complicated for comic shops because now they have to deal with several distributors. And Distillery almost says like, hey, we lost our big... Boom was kind of like the sole remaining big exclusive publisher that Diamond had. They bring in Distillery, which is still a new company, still a new publisher, but gaining their footing, creating their momentum. I think it's an interesting grab. Again, from a reader perspective, I don't expect anything to change. But from a distributor perspective, yeah, things could change quite a bit for them depending on how these LCSs, how these retailers get their comics and get their books. So I sent this news to you yesterday. We were kind of like going like, what the hell is going on? What's going to happen to Diamonds? What's going on with this? This is just kind of like run-of-the-mill comic book stuff, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like you said, that they both happened like simultaneously. Like
Yeah.
both of these kind of shifts just happened. Like you said, we were texting each other yesterday. Felt like every 5 minutes we were like, Wait, Penguin or Boom bought by Penguin? Wait, this had like it was a crazy Wednesday, my dude.
It was.
But like you said, I really don't think like from the readers we're gonna really see much of a change. We talked about it really quickly, and I know like there's a lot of different factors that play into this, but like the paper quality is one
Mhm.
thing that kind of does worry me. Like we all know that Marvel in recent years has had really terrible paper quality, and books like Boom, Image, Dynamite, like at least for me when I pick up those books, like it almost makes me realize how bad the Marvel paper is, because I'm like, oh my god, it's so great. So I really hope that this acquisition doesn't cause like cutting corners in some of the physical copy side.
Mm.
And the other side of it also is, like you said, I don't think it will really affect us as readers very much, but I do want to just extend my, condolences, appreciation to everyone at Boom Studios, and I really hope that the people at Boom with this acquisition, it's not like they're gonna start cleaning house and all this stuff, layoffs and all. That's the other thing that I worry about too, is people losing their jobs over this kind of business acquisition. But I mean, at the end of the day, business is business. This kind of stuff happens all the time. So you just got to hope for the best. Hopefully, like you said, from a reader's perspective, it doesn't seem like it'll change much. And hopefully, and Penguin, they have experience. So, like you said, you got to hope for the best. Personally, my experiences with Penguin haven't been super great. I'm sure you're aware of the same story. Remember, they lost like all those Ultimate Black Panther
Hmm.
issues, and there's been a couple times where my shop hasn't gotten books in because of late shipment. So I don't know. I'm wary about it, but I'm also hopeful. Like you said, it's business. Things like this happen all the time. You can't really stop it.
I think one of the most fascinating aspects about all this before we move on into our reviews is the trade situation, because that's something that Penguin Random House is like really big into, because they're the novels type of thing, and those are the books that like you'd see in the bigger retailers, and those are the books that kind of bring people in, are the trades, are the compendiums, and all that stuff, and what that means for more Boom titles. Now Boom already had a very good selection of very good quality when it came to trades and all that stuff. So curious to see what they're able to bring to the table when it comes to that. Maybe just more eyes on those books. But yeah, I think it's interesting. As for distillery, sure, like Diamond is still a big player in the game, right? Even though they don't have all these exclusive distribution rights anymore, a lot of comic shops still use Diamond because it's just a one stop shop for everything. And then they will kind of almost third party it through the individual separate distributors to get the books themselves. So anything to just like, bring more readers in. I think that's the biggest thing. We'll see how it goes. I just thought it was like a pretty interesting news week, all things considered, because like we said, this happened within like almost minutes to hours of each other. It was crazy. It was like really, really nuts.
I just felt so random too. I mean,
Yeah.
it very
Random.
admitted, yeah, very admittedly, like I'm not very in tune to like the distributor and all that, like the kind of nuances of all
Hmm.
that. But I mean, it just felt like I said, just felt like so random, like just like all of a sudden, like, well, Penguin bought Boom. Like I feel like usually we kind of hear things about this, rumblings and stuff, but this was just, oh, it happened.
It happened. It happened. Another thing that happened this week. We're moving on to our reviews. From the Ashes, a
Yes.
new beginning. The X-Men are back. Not like they ever really went away, but, the end of Krakoa has officially come and gone. People may or may not have liked the ending. Probably more negative reviews than positive reviews that I've seen scattered throughout the internet. But alas, we are here. From the Ashes is kind of like this whole new saga that we're telling. This is from Jed McKay, who we've praised throughout our entire history of the show. And I will let you go first when it comes to this book, because we do have differing opinions, and I want you to go first.
Yes, and I'm so excited that we did. We talked about this. I don't know if it was on or off camera, but I was like, I can't wait for the day that we disagree about a book, because we agree about everything. So I'm super excited that we actually don't agree on this.
Mm.
But I really like this, dude. I mean, I've said it before. It's Jed McKay's world, and we're just living in it, baby. I love McKay. He writes some of my favorite books right now, and this is just another worthy addition into his catalog, in my opinion. Love the way he handled the team, the introduction. I guess you could say introduction. Like you said, we know these characters, so it's not like they're new. But for me, what I enjoyed about it, and I know like this is exactly what you didn't enjoy about it, but I really liked that it felt like a just kind of back to status quo, if you would. Like, here are the X-Men, here's our team, they're doing some superhero stuff, and let's go. And for someone who was aware of Krakoa, and I've read my fair share, but I am someone who fell off of Krakoa. So to me, this is like the perfect thing to get me back into the X-Men. In my opinion, a great jumping on point for someone, like I said, that's kind of been lost in the X world for a little bit. So to me, like I said, it was very refreshing. I felt like I could jump in, and while it is a jumping on point, it definitely acknowledges Krakoa and like like what happened with that. So again, as someone who fell off of the Krakoa age, I really enjoyed it being new reader friendly. I enjoyed it being, like I said, a little bit more just kind of status quo, like classic kind of X-Men. And I mean, Ryan Stegman, dude, like, come on. Like, Stegman's art is so great. I was a huge fan of the Donny Cates Venom run, and to have him on the X line, I think is just really great. His action scenes are just so dynamic. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed it, and it also, while I enjoyed this issue, I think what really sold me on it is it made me excited for everything else. Like, I was already excited for like Gale's series and Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly's NYX. I've been excited about those, but this really kind of, I feel like, gave me the vibe of this new era, which made me more excited to explore it more.
Let me talk about the things I did like first. I actually really did enjoy Stegman's art, mainly because it doesn't feel like current Marvel art, right? Current Marvel art has a very distinct look to it. Stegman brings something a little different. One thing that threw me off a little bit was kind of like the design of Cyclops. Made him look a little younger than I was expecting for him to look, honestly. It's like, oh wow, he looks very early 20s right now, which is fine. It's the art style, it's the choice of it all. But I did like how it has a very distinct look to it. It just doesn't look like, every other book Marvel puts on the shelves. One word that you did say that I will very much disagree with is the word refreshing. Because to me, this book is anything but refreshing. When I'm looking at this book with the X-Men, this is very much a return to what was, a return to the norm prior to what we got. And personally, I just don't find that interesting because it's a literal been there, done that. We're doing it all over again. And even in this issue, Logan had that exact same thought. He's like, oh, we're doing this again? Yeah, I'm out. And he walked away. And I'm like, oh, I almost feel the same way when it comes to like, oh, we're doing this again. Oh, here comes Magneto. Ah, we're doing this again. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's,
which again, I completely agree. Like, I don't disagree with you. I completely agree to it. But again, for someone who fell off, like, that's kind of what I liked about it. Like you said, kind of status quo. Maybe refreshing isn't the right word, but I think, like, again, from falling off for Krakoa just felt so huge and dense, and like, there's islands and portals, and there's this medicine, and there's these herbs, and there's just so much going on. So again, to me, again, I completely agree with you. It is very much like you said, oh, we're doing this again. But that's kind of what I liked about it, because again, it's like, okay, I was very confused and lost with all the island and all this stuff, but now we're just back to a team of mutants fighting shit. And yeah, so like I said, I totally agree with you, but it's just like, I think, like I said, we just feel differently on it, which is great. That's what this is all about.
oh yeah, for sure. Something I do like a return from is Beast. Because Beast has
Yes,
been a jackwagon for a
dude.
while. They acknowledge that in this issue, how, Beast even says, repaying for my sins that I've done. It's like, cool. We're bringing this character back to what he was, which is something I wanted, and I think a few other people wanted as well, because it's like, this isn't the beast I like. There's some funny little back and forth between Juggernaut and Magic. I think this team is pretty interesting. It's not like the most unique team I've ever seen, but for the most part, it's interesting. I do enjoy, as someone who loved Kelly Thompson's West Coast Avengers, Kid Omega's in here. Really like that. I really like his character. He's a little smart aleck. I feel like since the end of that West Coast Avengers run to now, though, he hasn't like grown as a character. So hopefully, by the time this X-Men run kind of like matures and develops, we get to see him mature. We get to see him grow up a bit, because it's been a while, and it's like, all right, Quentin, time to time to grow up, pal. Like, you're still the same snotty, I'm too cool for school type of kid.
Mhm.
You're an Omega level mutant, buddy. Let's get things going here. Let's
Well,
get things
Scott
going.
even says that in the issue.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you're an Omega level mutant, man. Like, start acting like it.
Yes. It's just fine. So it's like, I hope as this series again matures,
Mhm.
so does Quentin, because I think he can be a very cool character. And yeah, he's snarky. That's part of the charm of him.
Mhm.
But I want to see him specifically grow up as this goes on. Again, the team's cool. I read this issue, and for me, I'm looking at him like, this just wasn't the thing I was hoping for when we're gonna reboot the X-Men, because it does feel like a reboot, absolutely, considering from the Krakoa stuff, but it just feels like, again, we're not rebooting it, we're hitting a rewind,
Mhm.
because now I'm rewatching something that I've already seen.
Yeah.
So,
I will say one last point before we get on. I know
yeah.
we got more reviews to get to, but the other thing I did like is that again it acknowledges Krakoa, but we don't like we don't go down this rabbit hole of it. Like you said, like with Beast, I think is a great example. Like she asked, like, what happened? All he says, like, oh, because of my sins. Like we don't have to spend 3 pages explaining why Beast is not involved. Like we just kind of roll with it, and I like that about it, and
Mhm.
I like at least for me, obviously this is just the first issue, and but to me it seems like the big theme of this book and what the book will be moving forward is dealing with the whole like not having Krakoa anymore. Like we get that great line in
Yeah.
this issue of like, oh, we had our Eden and now we don't, now we have to basically restart. And I don't know, I like that concept. And that seems like a theme going throughout all the X books. And this is like our superhero team. Whereas
Mhm.
like NYX is just, the mutants trying to reintegrate into society. So I
See,
like the
I'm
whole
more
vibe
interested
of
in
that.
that.
Yeah, that's
I'm
gonna
more
slap,
interested
dude.
in
Like,
that as a
dude, that's gonna be
concept, because
so
that's
good.
something we have, like, a little anthology on personal characters and the personal
Hmm.
lives. I'm way more interested than, let's do this all over again with the
Yeah,
X-Men. One last thing before we do move on is, did you see that I sent you what the QR, there's a QR code in here for some reason, that
yeah, it was
like,
on my issue. The
yeah,
council. Yeah.
there was like a QR code in here for some reason. There was like maybe a page that just wasn't included, so they gave you a QR code instead. And there's like this big council that's clearly like playing games, setting things up, and maybe you can decide and be like, oh, is this who we think it is, or someone in a Cerebro helmet? Is that Professor X? What's going on here? I don't know. Did you read a while ago? This was like the Captain America run where
Dude,
there
I
was like a
was just gonna
secret
say
council.
that, dude.
Dude,
Yes,
I'm like,
dude.
I feel like I've seen this before,
Yes,
man.
it
Like, why are we
literally,
dealing with secret councils all the time?
dude. Yes, literally the outer circle. That's what they were
Yes.
called in the Sentinel of
Yes.
Liberty Captain America run. Which, speaking of Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, amazing run. Everyone go check that out. One of my favorite Cap runs. But yeah, I was literally thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, yo, did Jed talk too much to Colin and Jack? Because I mean, this is literally the outer circle for mutants, which like I said, I loved that run and I
Mm,
loved the outer circle. So if they are introducing that kind of concept into here, while it is kind of a played trope of, like you said, the kind of secret council, I
mm.
I am interested in what that is, and I will admit mainly because, like I said, I did love that Sentinel of Liberty run so much. So if it is something like close to that, I feel like I could be game depending on how they issue it out.
Yeah. All right. So that was X Men. I'm sure you'll
I'm so glad you
continue
picked
on
that up though.
this. Yeah. I'm sure you'll continue it on this. For me, I think I'll
I
stick more
will.
with like the NYX and try that out. And if that's not the case for me, then maybe just another X book just doesn't land for me. Moving on from Marvel to DC, we have Action Comics. And something I really like about this Action Comics issue is yes, we do have a massive event going on in DC right now with Absolute Power, and the Superman book itself will be playing into that event. And we've had the House of Brainiac book go between Action and Superman. But now back to Action. We're just telling stories of the past. Gail Simone hops on this main story, and it's a mix between the very first age of Superman and like the Bronze 70s age of Superman. It's almost like you got like a little mix of both. We have like Clark here, the Superman, ripping open his jacket to unveil like the original Superman S, the red S with the black and the yellow. And it's a fun little story to start things off. It feels very, when I mention like old Superman, it starts with Clark, Lois, and Jimmy out in Metropolis, and they find a problem in the city, and it seems almost like Superman's gonna go out of his way to be an absolute menace to fix the problem, which is exactly what OG Superman does. Like OG, like original Superman, like way issue one Superman. What this turns into is aliens attack, and then we just get Superman versus aliens for the rest of it. Absolute fine, fun, popcorn book. Enjoyed it. That was kind of my thoughts on that. But
Superman and Aliens, classic. It's like peanut
it's
butter
classic.
and chocolate.
Yeah, we're telling a story. They call it a hidden story, an unknown story of Clark's early days, which I enjoy right now for all this absolute power madness that's going on. Something I do enjoy about Action Comics is it is an anthology, so we do get a backup story called Lois and Clark in Love at Work from Rainbow Rowell. You may remember Rainbow from the She-Hulk run that just unfortunately ended recently, but it's still a fun run. And this takes place just as Lois is taking charge of the Daily Planet as editor-in-chief, and we start to see some conflict of interest early on of how she knows that Clark is Superman. So when Clark goes out to do a story, she's starting to question herself to be, I'm not Perry. What can I do that's me? And maybe starts to overthink it because now she's not letting Clark write Superman stories because there's a conflict of interest there. So we got a little bit of like clashing heads on that, which I thought was a pretty fun story to tell. That's also going to be continued on throughout Action, throughout the next couple issues, and just something that we can really only get with that position that they're in right now. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Rainbow story personally a little bit more, just because I kind of like where Superman is at that point in time. I liked it. I thought that one was fun.
That sounds great. I love like just when you said like kind of like a not Elseworld but unknown story of Superman's
Yeah.
past, right? Like I just love that kind of stuff, and we talk about all the time. I love the kind of villain of the week sort of books that are just don't get me wrong. I love my big long arcs and impactful storytelling, but sometimes I just like a good fun book of super muscle person fighting monsters or aliens or whatever. So yeah, that sounds great to me. I'm waiting to get into Action. I mean, I know I can just hop in whenever,
Hop
but
in.
I've been like, I don't know. I feel like I keep waiting for like not necessarily a new number one, but like a new fresh arc to jump in. But it's like I'm always like, man, I want to get back into Superman. Man, I want to get back into Superman. I just need to take the plunge.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that got me into Action was Philip Kennedy Johnson's Warworld saga, which I highly recommend. So absolutely go do that and go check that out. But right now, it seems like a pretty good time to jump into Action. We're doing Superman Superstars. We're just telling a bunch of Superman stories throughout Action. And we just had that House of Brainiac event tie-in to go back and forth between that and Superman. From DC to Image, but sticking with a superhero theme, this is The Domain, and I've talked about public domain on this show plenty of times before. This is like Chip Zdarsky's very meta commentary on the comic book industry, taking shots at the comics themselves, the movies, the studios, editors, all of it. This is fun because this is the comic book that takes place within the comic book. And what's going on in that book right now is there was a character called the Domain, and he's almost like, the Superman of that world, and they're making movies about him and whatnot. And then they had this whole like rights on who can make the character. The old original writer wants to make it, blah, 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 blah. Just go read that book. This is the book that the original writer and his two sons, end up creating. And it is a little weird. I talked to a buddy of mine on my comic shop about how I was like, it's a little weird to like almost review a meta comic in a way, because what I thought was interesting is I feel like Chip is not writing this book as Chip Zdarsky. He's writing this book as if this character Miles Dallas would be writing this book, which I think is like, again, meta and a challenge on its own. Overall, if you're a fan of Public Domain, I think you would probably enjoy this. There isn't a whole lot of meat on the bones here, but it is interesting to see like what these characters within this book that I've become attached to are creating.
I love it. I love it. I haven't been reading public domains, but I am aware of it, and like you said, like the kind of meta nature of it. And again, like we've talked about this before, and we'll talk about this later on. Like I'm just a big fan of, again, just kind of creative storytelling. When anytime someone does something a little different, I really like that. And again, just the concept of Chip writing as an author that he create, like I don't know, like the book within a book kind of thing. I always like that. I think that's always fun, and that's always super interesting and always piques my interest. So I mean, add it to the list of the books I need to check out, because yeah, this and public domain, I think I would really enjoy, because again, even if the domain story itself isn't like my, like, oh my god, it's the best story I've ever written, I think, like I said, just the concept and the delivery of storytelling is super interesting.
What I think will be fascinating is I'm a little bit ahead on public domain because I'm on Chip Zdarsky's Substack, and he posted that there first before putting out into physical form. Is how the story in public domain affects this book in the domain, and seeing how like kind of one affects the other. I think that will be an interesting development as this miniseries kind of goes on, to see if what happens in quote unquote their real world, I put in quotes, affects this fake world. And we will actually talk a little bit later on real world and fake world from Boom Studios. But first, before we get into that, we have a very, very fun book. I was not expecting this. You threw this at me, and you gave it a 10 out of 10 review on our socials. And I was like, okay, well, I definitely have to check this out. This is from the world of minor threats, Barfly. The henchman gets his own comic. I don't even know where to begin. I'll let you start this off.
I mean, like you said, I loved this book. Like, absolutely loved it. I mean, you kind of said it perfectly. It's basically a story of a henchman, like his the villain that he served, got put away, so he's just kind of left to pick up the pieces. And he's also a mutant fly person, and his name is Shit Eater. And it is just it's just a great blend of, it's funny, it's relatable in a weird way. Like, you wouldn't think that you can relate to a mutant fly person, but very relatable, and just kind of like the story of an underdog, story of a guy or fly just trying to do his best. And I just really love that. Whoa, you all right there?
We're good.
But I really have been loving the Minor Threats universe. I think that's something that Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum do super, super well in this entire kind of universe, is their character work. Their characters in Minor Threats are amazing. The alternates that just recently came out, again, the characters are just very people you can relate to, people you can see yourself in, people that you can either root for or root against. And I just think they do that so well. And this is no exception, again, with the character of Shit Eater, the fly guy. It's, again, like you think when you open the book, you think it's just comedy and it's just funny, which it is very funny and goofy. But like I said, they're like Shit Eater is actually going through some stuff, and there's he's just again just trying to do his best, and I really loved it. I loved the art. I thought the art was really unique and dynamic, and the lettering also really just popped off the page. And I really want to give all the shout outs to Kyle Starks. I think that his last name is Starks. But he's going to be the main writer, at least from my understanding. Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom are kind of overseeing the
Yes.
the world of this, but the actual writing is being done by Kyle Starks. Excuse me, it's early here, but yeah, I just want to say like Kyle did such a great job. I think adding to this universe, and again, while I've already been a fan of it, I think that this is more than a worthy addition into this Minor Threats universe, and I am just so excited to get more into it.
Yeah, so shout out to Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom because they are the co-creators of the Hulu Modoc series, which I really
Yes.
enjoyed. And there's something very similar here. You can kind of connect some threads because there's some like AIM agents in that show who are just kind of like there, they're a vibe, and you can kind of see them like wanting to live their life. I get that exact same vibe from this Barfly shit eater character. It's just like you feel for him. He ends up having
Yeah.
like a little bit of a dream by the end because he has no master to serve, and now he's just off just trying to live his life, and he keeps getting thrown into places he really doesn't want to be. He just wants to live, and people are treating him like crap because he's an anthropomorphic. Bleh, words are hard. He's a
Dude, it's a
fly
hard
with
one.
legs. He is a fly with legs. Like that's exactly what it is. It's a very big fly person,
It's
and
a
they
character
treat
you
him like
want to
that.
root for.
Yes, it's the underdog story, right? You're really pushing for him. By the end of it, he has a dream. He wants to start a punk rock band with his coworker. And like, man, I just want to live like I just want him to live his little punk rock dream. Like just go around, go tour, start a band, go crazy. Like enjoy your life. That's all I want to see this little guy do. So I'm actually going to be keeping up with this because I really enjoyed this issue. And even though I haven't been keeping up with like anything in the Minor Threats universe like at all, this is something you could absolutely pick up and you can
Yeah.
just dive in and just root for an underdog type character here. I enjoyed it. This book surprised me. It was a whole lot of fun.
Pick it up, people. Pick it up. And I think that's a great point that you make too, Damon, is you do not have to have read any of the Minor Threats stuff previous to this to be able to jump in on this. You can 100% come in completely fresh. Never, even if you never even heard of Minor Threats. Very, very new reader friendly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely go pick this up. This was like one of my picks of the week. I really enjoyed it. I
It was my
really
favorite of the week, for sure.
a book I enjoyed the first issue of, and I think I actually enjoyed the second issue of a little bit more. This is Profane #2. This is when we were talking about how books that have like a fiction and nonfiction world in there, and that really leans into that. There's something funny about some boom books right now because we have Uncanny Valley as well, where we have like the cartoon world with the real world. This is takes that
Yeah.
idea, but at least has its own unique twist on it because it's not like a very stark difference between like a cartoon world and the real world. This is the fiction and the nonfiction world kind of coming into clashes with each other. We have this main character, Will Profane, who's a detective trying to solve in a way, the mystery of his own murder, but in reality, it's the murder of his creator, of his writer. And now, characters from not just his book, but from his rival's book are coming into the real world too and starting to clash heads with each other. I thought this was a whole lot of fun. Now that I'm starting to really get like the vibe and the feel of this world, I'm really digging it. What'd you think about this second issue?
Sorry. Agreed all around, my friend. I again going back to, loving creative storytelling. This is a prime example of that. the concept is just so creative that I just find myself just loving seeing how it's unfolding and how the writer is handling this concept. I think is really just fascinating to see, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the we're playing, like you said in here, with the kind of fiction versus nonfiction world,
Mm,
learning like what are the rules of that, how does that work, all I think is like, again, just super fascinating to me. I think the art is perfect for this book. Not only is it really great, but it just fits the tone and the feel of this book
yeah.
like literally perfectly. And I know that you've experienced this as well. Sometimes you can have great art, but it just doesn't fit the book that it's on. But like it's like this fits like a glove, and it's just I really enjoy it. I cannot wait to see again more of this world unfold, learn more about the rules of this world. And again, I think the concept of it is also super interesting with this, fictional character investigating his writer's murder. It's like almost like, if God was killed and then you have to solve it, right? Like it's like that's his creator. He created
Mm.
him. So it's like to him that's like his God, right? So I think that dynamic is just kind of interesting, and I hope that we kind of dig more into that relationship between the character and creator as we go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because there's another creator in here whose characters are running around the world creating, wreaking havoc wherever they go. It is kind of ironic that you said fits like a glove because the main villain in this book is named Red Glove, and you can see it on the cover. Will Profane kind of being like held up by a red glove. If you like James Bond stories, if you like Sherlock Holmes stories, where it's like it does fall into like those classic tropes, if you will, I think you'll really enjoy this because it definitely leans into those. It really, you know, really leans in because you see Will Profane just always, without fail, fall for a girl, trust her too much, and it'll backfire 24/7, 365 days. It's you feel for him, but it's like, come on, bro. Like I've been with you for 2 issues, and I know, like, come
Yeah.
on, man.
Exactly. Well, that's another thing I love about it is, like you said, it is also kind of like a meta comment, kind of going back
Mm,
to public domain. It's almost like a meta commentary of like detective stories and
yeah.
like detective novels and stuff, which again is just another layer of it that I really enjoy. But yeah, A+ is all around on Profane. I'm super excited to get more into it.
So far, so good on Profane. Really enjoyed it. A book we've been loving. And honestly, this was my favorite issue of this run so far. This is Crocodile Black, #3, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Sam with the art. We're seeing a character now who is going down one of the worst spirals I have ever seen. It's not good. It is a very bad spiral. And I'm starting to get to a point where I'm questioning whether this spiral, we talked about like possessed boots and all this jazz. It's like, is this spiral part of the boots themselves, or is this character just losing it? Because we have a conversation with his sister and his father early on in this issue that makes me question how much of this descent is, are these boots, or is it just the character themselves? Regardless of that, it's really cool to see we had like an element introduced from issue 2 with like the cops investigating like a pharmacy, and that gets brought up instantly into this issue. Now we're starting to see those two stories collide very quickly. It's a very cool book. It's a freaky book. It makes you uncomfortable intentionally, and you're starting to see the paranoia of this character go from like 0 to 100 very, very quickly. We don't know what he's did in the past. There's implications that he may or may not have like killed his brother at some point. We really don't know because of like the mental state of this character is in such a flux.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I really love about this book is our main character, and it almost kind of takes the avenue of like an unreliable narrator in some
Mm-hmm.
parts, because like you said, we're kind of seeing this main character, this kid, almost descent into madness,
Yeah.
and we get a lot of like he's seeing things, so it makes me question, being a reader, like what if this is real and what if this is
Mm-hmm.
not real, because I would not be surprised if in like later issues we find things that we thought like happened didn't happen at all. And I think that's just such a smart way that Phil Kennedy Johnson is playing with this story. And also with Sam's art, I think that
Mm-hmm.
also the same concept translates to the art, because there, at least for me, I feel like there's so much visual symbolism throughout these issues, even from like issues 1 to 3, where I find myself going back multiple times when I'm reading this, because I'm like, wait, that looks like this or that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like there's like clues everywhere that I just need to discover, right? And I'm really loving this. I know we've said we loved every book. We got some great books this week, but I agree, this one is just so good. And another thing I wanted to point out, which I think goes to how great the story is I never even considered that the boots are freaking haunted, dude. Like
There's something like he was like drawn to those at the very
well,
beginning
see,
when he put them on. He started like seeing some things. So
mm-hmm.
originally I was like, oh, maybe there's like some sort of like not maybe a haunt, but like some sort of like crazy
No,
weird
yeah.
possession that's going on in these boots. But maybe honestly, like now I'm starting to get to a point. I'm like, oh, maybe not. Maybe this guy's just spiraling completely out of control,
Which is
and
what
maybe
I originally thought,
yeah.
yeah. But I think that just goes to how good the story is, and not only how
Mm-hmm.
good, but again, this kind of concept that we're talking about of like the paranoia and like the unreliable narrator. That's why we have these not differing perspectives, but again, we kind of like, again, I never even considered the boots to have like a paranormal element to them, which I mean, I love that. So I think again, this book just begs for you to reread it, to really dive into it again, like look for kind of clues to what's going on. And it's just, again, just so good. I really love it. I cannot wait to die again. It's one of those like I can't wait till we have like 10 issues so I can go back to the earlier one and like see all the things unfold. And I'm still pondering my mind over the first panel of the first issue, like when he like the first couple panels where he kills those dudes, well, someone kills those dudes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still like, what was that all about, right? So like, again, there's just so many questions in a good way that is just like it, hooking me so good.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. There's the art from Psalm that we talked about. There's like this squiggly line character that's like a little boy, and he just kept saying, Danny, hide, Danny, hide. And I'm like, oh, is this supposed to almost be like a flashback in his brain at some sort of time where he's like putting himself in a situation, maybe what actually happened to his brother, and he's just kind of like reliving it? Or is it like an imaginary friend type of thing that's trying to tell him to do the right thing and it's not? There's so many like little elements in here. Again, we're only 3 issues in, so the story is still like at a slow boil, at a broil. We're getting there. Like things are just getting discovered. We're not gonna know everything right now, but that's the intrigue that keeps me coming back. And I just think it's a very, very cool book. I can't wait for more of it. Honestly, this has been again one of the really cool surprises of the last few months has been this series. I really enjoyed Barfly as well that we talked about earlier. Profane has been super fun. There's just a lot of good books out right now, and it doesn't have to just be Marvel or DC. I understand, we understand. Those are the big two. Everyone likes to go to the big two superhero stories all the time, but the non-superhero stories, that's like the to me right now, that's the good stuff. That's the stuff where you're able to reach out a little bit more and tell things that you wouldn't be able to tell in any other book.
100% agree. I mean, Crocodile Black, Barfly, both I and Profane as well. Like all amazing examples of what's being done and can be done outside of the big two. Again, I mean, look who you're talking to. They call me Fat Thor for God's sakes. Obviously, I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a big two fan. That's what I mainly read, right? But I would 100% agree with you. I think that some of the best storytelling in comics going on right now
Mm-hmm.
is in the indie sector. I wouldn't even say maybe. I will say for sure. Like again, just the creative storytelling, pushing the boundaries of what you can do in comic books. I think it's just it's a time to be an indie comic fan for sure.
Yes, absolutely. It really, truly is. Going on to next week, we still have to find out a recording plan for next week because we have a little bit of hitch in that, but we'll figure it out. We have some really good books next week, starting with the big two. We have Ultimate X-Men from Marvel on the DC side. I've really still been enjoying Titans, Nightwing. I think we only have 3 more issues left of that, which is heartbreaking for me, but really been enjoying it. Superman as well, going off of the big Absolute Power event. And then this one from Dark Horse. AF knows this from me, but any book written by Gerard Way, I'm instantly sold on. And Gerard Way's next book, Paranoid Gardens, is coming out next week, so we are absolutely 100% talking about that. Talk about weird,
Hell yeah.
crazy storytelling. That is, Gerard always delivers on weird, crazy storytelling. What about you for next week? Anything you're keeping an eye out for?
As usual, my friend, I am behind and I have not looked at next week yet. But again, I mean,
I ask you every
I
single
know
week.
why I'm surprised, I don't know. But I mean, same as always, my dude. You know, if it's McKay, I'm in on it. That's like some of my favorite stuff at Marvel right now. So if we get a Doctor Strange, a Blood Hunt, a Moon Knight, any of those, I am 100%. Or Avengers too. I'm hyped on that. Obviously, if we have I don't think we have Immortal Thor coming this next week, but
Something I can tell you that is on the dock is Scarlet Witch #2.
oh wait, when did Scarlet Witch #1 come out?
A while ago, we discussed it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we did. Oh,
I'm
man.
fucking losing it, dude.
Oh, no.
Wait.
Oh, man. We're about to have a Crocodile Black situation with
Dude,
Fat
what?
Thor.
What?
Yeah, man.
I thought we were still waiting. I thought the last
No,
was
dude.
Quicksilver Scarlet. Oh wait, no. Yeah, we do
Yeah,
have the
there we
first
go.
issue.
It's all coming together.
Man, hey, just give me a second.
jeez.
Just give me
Oh,
a second.
no.
It all comes in. Yeah,
Oh,
no.
dear.
Yes, we did have Scarlet Witch #1, and it was awesome. And I cannot wait for #2. So that's gonna be this next week.
Yes, next week. It'll
Awesome.
be great.
I'm
Awesome.
in. I'm in.
Oh, golly. Oh,
Dude, I
dear.
thought I
Oh,
was-
dear.
Literally thought I was losing my freaking mind. There for
Oh,
a second.
that was worrisome. Before we go even crazier, that'll do it for this episode of the Comic Corner, this issue of the Comic Corner. My name is Damon. He is Fat Thor. You can catch our show on Twitter at Comic Corner Pod, where we put on previews and announcements, reviews, all that good jazz, even for books that we didn't cover here on the show. We'll do a quick review if possible for any book that we may have missed. I know a book that I will be putting a review out for you or me will be the Ultimates, which we did unfortunately miss this week, but we will have a review for that at some point soon. That'll do it for this issue of the Comic Corner. Make sure to go read some comics. And, of course, do not forget to go support your local comic shops if possible. Until next time.